We live in a world where we're always busy. We don't take a lot of time to just stop and smell the roses because we always have to be somewhere. And I think the same thing happens when it comes to reading our Bible. We're so busy, we're on a time schedule, we have to be here at this time and here at this time. So what we do is we grab a quick devotional in the morning, read a verse, and we're out the door. But if we want to know God, if we really want to know Him, we're going to have to slow down. We're going to have to slow down, wake up 5 or 10 minutes early, open our Bible, and spend the time reading it slowly so we can get to know God. That's what we're going to talk about today. Join us as we continue through the Gospel of Luke. Mother, first let's go there. Cheyenne had prom. Okay, so yay, prom. She sends me a picture, and we're real busy with basketball all day, didn't think anything about it. Wasn't even there when she got dressed. It was kind of sad. So she sends me a picture, and he sent her this big, beautiful corsage. Heart attack. I forgot to get him his boutonniere. Never even thought about it. And I'm thinking, oh, that's just so I'm so sorry. That's so embarrassing. It was like the worst thing in the whole world. So poor little Cheyenne, she went to get her hair. She's like, I want an updo. So I'm like, okay, great. So she goes and gets this hairdo, comes to my mom's because we have this big Easter thing. And she's crying, sobbing. I hate my hair. It looks so horrible. And we're trying to tell her, trust me, in 10 years, maybe even a year, you won't remember this nor even care or anything. But at the time, and I'm not real compassionate because I'm like, get over it. It's just not that big of a deal. So anyway, thankfully she has sister and sister-in-laws that came in and were like, oh, you're fine, and wash your hair. So they helped work her through it. So thank you for those girls to be in my life to help. I always say it takes a village to raise my children. It kind of does. And then I did not win the grandmother year of the award. Not for any reason, except I had this cute little grandbaby that came last week I told you about. And I was talking to my other daughter-in-law yesterday, and I left the statement saying, hey, if there's anything I can do to help, okay, and I needed to clarify that, okay? It's, you know how those people, and they have those things that go over their head, and I don't know what it is, it's like a bubble, and that's really what you mean, not what you say. So I said, I'll do anything you want me to except cook, clean, or babysit. Okay, so I'm like, without those things, I'm just the worst grandmother ever. So I was talking to Hannah the other day, and I said, you guys need to get a rent-a-grandma. And she said, I think that's a great idea. So if anyone knows anyone who actually, you're hired. Talk to Hannah afterwards. She goes, I just want someone who loves to hug the baby and snuggle and play with them, and that is so not me. I would forget they were even there. I've told you that before, and I have. I'm like, oh, where's the baby? Oh, I forgot I was watching her. So I'm not a good grandmother when it comes to that. Okay, let's talk Bible. All right. Okay, last week we talked about healing the leper, and we went through that. It took us, 2 weeks to get through with that. And so today we're going to just continue on Luke 5, verse 15. And today I want to hopefully get to some people that feel like God is always mad at them. I think that God hates me, and I have sinned too much in my life, and so therefore He's never, ever going to forgive me for the things that I've done. And I'm hoping today when you walk out of here, you'll be like, you know what, that's just not true. That's absolutely not true. And I want everyone to be able to get past their past and know that from this day forward, God's just He loves you, and He wants to help you grow in your faith. He's not mad at you. And so I have some good illustrations that I learned from one of my walks that I took. So, all right, let's start Luke 5, verse 15 in your handout. But the news about him was spreading even farther, and large crowds were gathering to hear him and to be healed of their sickness. But Jesus himself would often slip away to the wilderness and pray. So I want to stop there for a minute before we go any too farther. And I know for us, we've always talked about this time where Jesus goes off to the wilderness and prays. And he gets by himself and he gets alone. And I think that we've talked about the prayer thing before. So today I want to just stop for a second and talk about getting alone and reading your Bible. Because I think when we're going through Revelation right now, I think that the reason why people don't understand what's going on in the government or with what's going to happen in the future is because no one has ever opened their Bible and read it because it looks confusing or whatever. But I think the problem is most people open their Bibles, read something real quick, shut it, and run out the door. And what I want us to see today is that the only way we're ever going to really know God, like really know him and know his heart and know what he's like, is to spend time in his word. And so I want to just kind of talk about that for a few minutes first this morning, because I think that if Jesus was really, it was important for him to get away from the crowds and the people that he's healing and the church service and all that, to get alone with his Father, then I think that it's really important that we should be doing that also. And I think that the Bible is our greatest commodity that we own. And that's what we do here. That's what this study is based on, is getting to know God in his word and how he can impact our lives. And the only way we're going to know that is if we open our Bible and actually read it. So I have this illustration that reminded me of the importance of this. A couple weeks ago, Rob and I went on our first little walk before we decided to do this. We live in the desert, so we decided to go onto our dirt road because Rob lost a hubcap. Okay, so he has this big piece of a hubcap that it came off somewhere. And he said, Lisa, I lost it once before. We live on this dirt road. It has a whole bunch of potholes in it. And he said, I think if we walk, you walk on one side, I walk on the other, we'll just look. I'm sure we'll be able to find it. So we took out on our little walk. And the amazing thing is that I saw things that I have never seen on that road before. I drive that road every day, morning, night. But the problem is that I'm driving so fast down the road that I don't stop to look around to see. I had a contest on how many hubcaps I found, and there was a lot of them. Like, I think I found probably 8. So if you're missing a hubcap, come to me. We found Ford, I think Nissan, everything except Rob's hubcap, which is kind of sad. But I think the problem is that we get so busy in our lives that we don't take the time to stop and say, what does the Bible actually say, and to help me grow in my faith? And so what I do now is I thought about it as little hubcaps. I call them hubcaps or treasures or nuggets. As you're reading the Bible, those are the little things that will teach you something about God that will just completely change your life. So I gave us a couple examples, and we're going to go through 1 Samuel for the first one. I have just 2 examples because I just want to show you the difference between running through your Bible and running through a story and stopping and going, oh my gosh, this one word or this one phrase, I just learned something valuable about God that I've just put my trust in. So Jonathan, we're going to talk about 1 Samuel. There's a story about Saul, and he's going to battle. He has a son named Jonathan. Jonathan is an armor bearer, decided to go off on their own just to kind of go check out the lay of the land. And they came across the bad guys, the Philistines, and they did, their options were to hide, to run, to go back to Dad, to say, hey, come and see what, come over here. Here's the bad guys. Now let's go attack them. But he didn't do that. Look what he says in 1 Samuel 14:6. He said, then Jonathan said to the young man who was carrying his armor, come and let us cross over to the garrison of these uncircumcised. Perhaps the Lord will work for us, for the Lord is not restrained to save by many or by few. Now, if we're just reading that through, it's just, okay, whatever. But all of a sudden, when I slow down and I read this, I say, okay, I just learned something really valuable about God. He's not restrained by anything. Like, I think we think that we have to have a lot of money or we have to have a lot of people. Like, I'm going to do this project, but it's going to be a lot of money and a lot of people to get it done. And what this tells me is that that's not true. God can do anything. He's not restrained by our limitations. He's not restrained by any of those things. And so it reminded me that that I don't have to worry about the things that I don't have, because I serve a big God that can do anything. So he can take something small, like if you have a small amount of money, a small prayer, a small amount of faith, whatever that is. Donna, just seeing you reminded me of when you and I were talking about Chris and Patricia, the homeless people. And she was saying, it's going to cost money, but I know, I'm just praying, I'm not doing anything, because I know God is that big that he's going to come along with somebody or something that has the resources and help this situation, because that's the God that we serve. during an especially trying time in the work of the China Inland Mission, Hudson Taylor wrote to his wife, "We have 25 cents and all the promises of God." And I think that we tend to think that this world, we don't think to put God, to know He's big enough to do anything that we need in our life. I cannot honestly, I told you last week that if I repeat a story, it's because I don't have Alzheimer's. But this story I might have repeated, and I do have Alzheimer's if this is the case, because I think I was going to wait and tell you this when I do the thing on Joseph, but then I think I said it in Revelation, so if I tell you this again, then just ignore me. But about a month ago, I know most of you know about our business, and we used to have a lot of money. We don't anymore, which is fine. And so now we've learned that we have to trust God for every single little thing that happens in our life. And so when we have a big bill we have to pay on the 10th of the month. So last month, I guess it was a week before this bill was due. And we knew we don't pay that, we're out of business. Literally done. We shut down everything. All of our kids work for us. It's just, it's a big deal if it happens. And the only thing we had was a prayer. That's it. We had no source of getting money. We had no way to get money. We had investors out looking, but nothing was happening. It's a Friday night. We just met with our investors that were there. We sat down with them and said, look, here's the deal. We don't have enough money to pay our supplier next week. So we don't know what's going to happen, but we believe God and we believe He's a big God. And we're just, if He wants the company to succeed, He's going to have to provide the money. So that was great. We went to bed Friday night. It was kind of like, you just kind of go to bed. I think we went to bed at 6:30, okay, if that tells you anything. So we go to bed. The Saturday morning we wake up, and I wake up to this email from this lady. Hi, God spoke to me last night and said that I need to give you this certain amount of money for your business. Okay, clearly out of the blue. And not only that, this amount of money was the same amount that Rob 2 weeks before said, Lisa, if we had this amount of money, I just know, and I've never told anyone that. And this lady said, this is what I want to do. We talked to her later. So how did that happen? She said, I'm literally walking along, not thinking about anything. And all of a sudden, God just said, you need to help them with their business. And she says, I'm looking around like, okay, how much? And she said, I had this number, which was the exact number, go right across like my eyes. And she goes, really? That seems like a lot. How about another number? And nope, she said it went right across her eyes again. And she said, I've never had that happen. And so I know that that's what we're supposed to do. So I know I serve a big God that is not restrained by anything. And I learned that from this little verse that with Jonathan and David. But if I was racing through, I'm not going to see it. So my point is that as we read our Bible, we have to be careful not to go so fast. Like so many people will read just to read. Like, oh, I just want to get this over with. I'll get my 5 minutes in. Da-da-da-da-da, cool. And then you go. But instead, I would rather you read 6 verses and say, God, what do you want to teach me today about you? Because this is the whole reason why I read my Bible, is so that I can know you. And so I look back on our business, and I've told you this a million times, that I see how God has always provided for us, and that He just does. And I think it's because I realize that nothing is mine, everything is His. And when I realize that, then all the responsibility now goes to Him. God, if you want our business, if you want my child to go to this school, if you want this bill to get paid, if you want me to stay in this house, you have to provide. Like, I'm your child, I'm here, I'm not doing anything stupid. If you want it, it's your responsibility. And it's kind of fun. I think He likes us to put that responsibility on Him. So anyway, my faith was built because I read something really slowly. All right, let's look at the next one. David in the Old Testament, he comes across, most people know David and Goliath, David and Bathsheba. This is the story with David and Goliath. He goes to the battlefield because his dad says, hey, go see your brothers on the battlefield. And when he gets there, he sees big old Goliath shouting at the Israelites, and the Israelites are running. And here's little pipsqueak David, and he's looking at them like, who are you people? Like, we serve this big, awesome God. Why are you running from Goliath? He couldn't even fathom that. So let's look at 1 Samuel 17:26. Then David spoke to the men who were standing by him, saying, "What will be done for the man who kills this Philistine and takes away the reproach from Israel? For who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should taunt the armies of the living God?" Now, if you just read that, you're just like, okay, David's having this conversation, and it's like, who should taunt the living God, blah, blah, blah. And you don't really think about it, but then if you stop there and you say, wait a minute, this living God isn't just up in heaven just looking at the earth wondering what he did. He's living and he's active in each one of our lives if we're followers of him. And so I don't have to when I read things like that, I see how big he is once again. And he's not fearful. David is not fearful of this giant man. And I think the more we get to know God, we're not going to be fearful of our giant problems because we're going to know him and trust him and believe in him because we've trusted him with other things and he's come through. And so now that's going to help us. Now, why was he not afraid? And we'll go into 1 Samuel 17, verse 33. Then Saul said to David, "You are not able to go against this Philistine to fight with him, for you are but a youth, while he has been a warrior from his youth." But David said to Saul, "Your servant was tending his father's sheep when a lion or a bear came and took a lamb from the flock. I went out after him and attacked him and rescued it from his mouth. And when he rose up against me, I seized him by his beard and struck him and killed him. Your servant has killed both the lion and the bear, and this uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them, since he has taunted the armies of the living God." Now, this is little David. You mess with me, you're messing with my God. And I think if we get that feeling in our life or that understanding, nothing in this world will ever shake us. It just won't, because we have this living God that is standing behind us. So if you read it quickly, you see like, oh, David killed some lion and bears, whatever. But if you stop to really think about him, he's just a little shepherd boy, and he isn't very big, and he's not strong, but he trusted God with his big, scary lion and bears. And he knows in reality that if he's going to go fight that bear or lion on his own, he's not going to win. But he has that big of a God. When we went to Alaska a long time ago, and I have this thing with bears. Like, I think they're so cute. And because I was raised with teddy bears, I think all the bears need to, like, hug me. And so I want to go up whenever I see one in the wilderness, and I want to put my arm around them. And all of the people that are with us are always with their guns to their side saying, don't even think of going near these animals. They're like, they have babies, they'll kill you. And I'm like, oh, no, they're so cute. So we were at this one place, and they had this, like, you climb up the stairs and you watch the bears from up there. Well, I don't want to watch them from up there. I want to hang out with them down here. So I'm down here, and the one lady at the park said, "Ma'am, you got to get up there. There's this big bear that we just saw that's coming our way." This huge, big caramel-colored bear. It was beautiful. And I'm like, yeah, no, I don't think so. I just want to stay here. "Ma'am, get up there, like, now." I was like, okay, that's so sad. But what she knew, and I kind of knew, is that this bear would really like to eat me for dinner. Okay, that's just because by nature, that's what they do. So I'm going to assume that David knew the same thing. Like, he knew that this bear would like to eat him, or the lion would like to eat him for dinner, but he also trusted that he had this really big God that would help him through those things too. So I'm not going to get a sheep out of a lion's mouth if I didn't know God was on my side. And I think a lot of us, we face the problems that we do because we know that God is on our side. I don't know if anyone, a lot of you probably go to CCV. I'm trying to think what it was that Dawn said this weekend. There was that book called Disappointment with God by Philip Yancey. If anyone has never read it, go get it. It's literally one of the best books I've ever read, Disappointment with God. But at the very end, he says, I would rather be disappointed with God than disappointed without God. And I think that's so true. I would rather go through life and all the problems knowing that God is on my side versus if he isn't on my side, I would be so fearful to go into doing anything. 1 Samuel 17:45. Then David said to the Philistine, "You come to me with a sword, a spear, and a javelin, but I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have taunted. This day the Lord will deliver you up into my hands, and I will strike you down and remove your head from you, and I will give the dead bodies of the armies of the Philistines this day to the birds of the Philistines this day to the birds of the sky and the wild beasts of the earth, and all that the earth may know that there is a God in Israel. So my little hubcap that I learned was that any battle that you and I are going through is really God's battle. And when we know that, it changes everything. I know I've said this before, I do that with this ministry. I used to worry all the time. How many people are here? Now we count, we don't really count by, just so we have enough handouts. But it used to be like if we had a certain amount and then less the next week, then I would be depressed and I would be sad because I think no one likes me and it's me and what's my. And then finally one day I learned that there is nothing I can do to make or break this ministry. It's not mine. It's totally God's. And so it's one of those things like when I read this from David, it's like, God, this is yours. I can't do anything to bring people or to run people away. Like if they come, they do. If they don't, whatever. It's your deal. So I realize that the pressure comes off of me and it all goes on to him, and that's a good place to be. So if God is fighting our battles for us, then there shouldn't be anything in our life that we should ever have to be fearful for. We pray, give it to God, he handles it, we're good to go. So when a problem comes up, or a hurt or disappointment or a financial issue or a relationship issue, I think that the best thing we do is just say, God, this is yours, okay? You handled it. But I only know that because I sat down and I opened my Bible and I read it slowly and I prayed that God would show me something about himself. And that's what we want to do. Jesus went away into the wilderness, got alone with his Father, because that was really important for his relationship with him and his relationship with the people around him. And that's the thing. If it's important to Jesus, it really needs to be important to us too. Because he's given us his word. He's given us all the people in the Bible when we read about the David, the Noah, the Abraham, Isaac, Esther, all of these people. He's given us their stories so that we can learn something on how God dealt with them, so that we know how God will deal with us. So it's brilliant and it's awesome. So don't speed down the road. That is what I learned from my little walk, is that if you speed down it, you're never going to see things that God really wants you to stop and see. All right, hopefully that lesson was a great reminder to slow down. When someone asked Jesus, what's the greatest command? Jesus said to love God with all of your heart, soul, and mind. So the question I want to ask today is, does time spent with God show him that we love him first and foremost? I think that is a great question to ponder this week. And if you realize you're not reading the Bible and getting to know God, wake up a few minutes early. Take the time to spend with him to get to know him. Because that's what following Jesus is all about, knowing him and following him and serving him. So hopefully that helped you today. Have a good day.